Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Calum.
And sometimes you need a gun that is bigger than the regular sized gun. Those guns are called artillery. And today, Calum, we're going to show you how to use it.
Nice. Today we will be talking about using artillery units. Artillery can be a game changer on the battlefield with the ability to hit multiple enemy teams at the same time.
Alrighty, you have an M7 Priest battery on the battlefield. You want to go ahead and explain how that works?
Yeah, of course. So, you use your artillery units in the shooting phase of your turn, but don't think that just having artillery units on the table alone is enough to bombard your enemies. You need to have a spotting team to call in the target area for firing. A spotting team can be a firing team, any formation HQ team, or a specialist observer.
Can your spotting team spot at any time?
They can only spot in the shooting phase of the turn, and they cannot spot if they've moved, shot, attempted to dig in, or assaulted on this turn. I'm going to use my M4 Sherman Company commander to spot for my artillery, since he's a formation commander, so part of the HQ. He hasn't moved, he hasn't fired, so totally eligible to spot.
Okay, so can you spot anything on the battlefield?
No. For this unit to be an eligible target for my artillery, they need to be in line of sight of my spotting team. My M4 Sherman Company, the commander of it, can easily establish a line of sight to your Panzer Grenadier unit, so they'll be my target.
Okay, so my Panzer Grenadiers are in line of sight. Is that all you need to start bombarding them?
Again, not quite. So just like when we were shooting with other teams, the enemy has to be within range of your weapon. As you can see on my card, my M7 Priest battery has a massive range of 72 inches or 180 centimeters. So your teams will be well in range to be shot at. Now, I grab my artillery template and pop that on top of the aiming point, being careful of danger close, which is when my artillery template is within 4 inches or 10 centimeters of my friendly teams. If this happens, I cannot fire.
Okay, so I'm within your range and you have a line of sight and the bombardment is not within 4 inches or 10 centimeters of one of your teams. So now what you got to do? So
now I need to see if I can successfully range in my M7 Priests to hit that target. To do this, I must roll a skill test. My M4 Sherman have a skill rating of 3+, so I need a 3 or more to successfully range in. I get 3 attempts to do this, however. If I don't range in on my first roll, it will be harder to hit your Panzer Grenadiers down the line. It's also important to remember that if my artillery template covers any terrain when attempting to range in, I must add +1 to the score required to range in. For example, if your Panzer Grenadiers were in this house here, my skill test would now be a 4+.
Okay, so you're trying to get a range in on a roll of 3 or more, and you have 3 chances.
Yeah,
so go for it.
Okay, so my first roll is 2, so that fails. My second roll is a 5, so a success.
Okay, so you successfully range in on your second attempt, so what does that mean?
So if I want, I can use my remaining roll to attempt to range in another artillery unit, which if I succeeded would be ranged in on my third attempt, so we might have difficulty hitting on any targets. On the other hand, it would be ranged in, ready for a repeat bombardment on the next turn. However, I'm not going to do this right now.
Okay, so your M7 Priests are ranged in, and you're going to shoot. Go for it.
Cool. Now that the target's been ascertained, my spotter calls the bombardment and I roll for hits. This works in exactly the same way as normal shooting, except I roll a die for each enemy team beneath the target template. I would have liked to range in on my first roll, because if I range in on my second attempt, I suffer the penalty of adding a +1 to hit the teams under the template. If I get in on my third roll, I suffer a penalty of +2 to hit. So I ranged in on my second attempt, I add 1 to the score to hit on your Panzer Grenadiers. They have a is hit on score of 4, so now that becomes a 5+. There are 5 of them, so I roll a die for each one, and fortunately for me, I've rolled a 5 for this one and a 6 for this one, so I score some hits.
And in a bombardment, do I roll for saves?
Yes, you do. And again, this works in this exact same way as normal shooting. However, if it's a tank that's being bombarded, you use the top armor when rolling for saves. Also remember that if an infantry unit is in bulletproof cover, such as a house, the artillery will need to pass a firepower test.
Okay, how many hits does an artillery need to get on a unit to pin it down?
Right, so any unit hit by an artillery bombardment will be pinned down with just 1 hit. So your Panzer Grenadiers with 2 hits are now pinned down.
Well, can you fire on the same spot again next turn?
Totally. Yes, because I've already ranged in, I can bombard the exact same point next turn, automatically ranging in on my first attempt. So not only do I no longer have any penalty to hit your teams under the template, but when I repeat a bombardment like this, you must re-roll all successful saves for infantry and guns.
Yikes, they could get pretty deadly pretty quick.
It certainly could. You do not want to sit under a bombardment for too long if you can't help it.
Okay, so does this work the same way for aircraft units dropping bombs?
Yeah, essentially the same. Planes bombard in the exact same way. If you were to use your Stuka dive bomber, for example, you would undergo the exact same process. However, only a member of the Stuka's unit can act as a spotter for the bombardment. And of course, since they keep on moving, they can't repeat a bombardment.
Oh. Okay, so that's artillery in a nutshell, huh? All right.